Tunisia's president has sacked the prime minister and suspended parliament after violent protests broke out on Sunday. Although the move appears swift, President Kais Saied has warned of such action after more than a year of political disputes. The North African nation is grappling with an economic crisis exacerbated by a failure to contain the coronavirus pandemic. As Liz Maddock reports, this is the biggest challenge Tunisia's young constitution has faced.
Late on Sunday, Independence Day protests turned to celebrations. Tunisians had come out in their thousands, angry at a failed healthcare system, rising unemployment and deteriorating state services. By night, President Kais Saied had taken action, sacking the Prime Minister and suspending Parliament.
It's the first time in my life I've heard a head of state make a correct decision. We have taken our country back. This is the first time I've gone out to the streets to celebrate.
After assuming executive authority, the president walked the streets where 10 years ago protests led to a revolution. He received a hero's welcome. But the Arab Spring's democratic legacy now hangs in the balance, as critics fear this is the beginning of a return to autocratic rule. Concerns Saied rejects.
The measures that will be implemented immediately are: the first one is the freezing of all the mandates of Parliament. The second decision is lifting immunity for all parliamentary members. The third one is that I will lead the executive authority and I will appoint a Prime Minister to help me. A decree will be issued soon containing the dismissal of the Prime Minister and inviting another person to lead the government during this period.
The mood was very different when the parliamentary speaker tried to enter the Parliament building. Rached Ghannouchi wanted to call a session in defiance of Saied, but the army stopped the former political exile from entering. He's accused the president of carrying out a coup against the revolution.
Today, we were surprised by the supreme decisions in a country that is proud of being the first Arab democracy and having the latest constitution announcing decisions that are essentially a coup d'etat, and it is called nothing but a coup.
It's been a bumpy decade of democracy, public anger over years of corruption, political bickering and a looming fiscal crisis had already soured many Tunisians against the government before the COVID-19 pandemic. Demonstrators are celebrating the day's win, but the reforms they're demanding still need to be addressed. Liz Maddock, TRT World.
Tarek Cherkaoui is manager at TRT World's Research Centre and says leaders are exploiting economic struggles on the ground to erode democracy in the country.
The people on the streets initially back in the early days of the Arab Spring or the Arab uprisings, where there were multiple demands. Some of the people demanded the return of democracy or the establishment of democracy and civil rights and human rights and civil freedoms and media freedoms and all that. But a lot of people, actually, the average Joe in the street, the average Muhammad in the street, was mainly concerned about the improvement of the economic conditions. And I think this is the problem with democracy. Democracy works, but it works at a slow pace because there are a lot of compromises to be made. There are lots of discussions, a lot of debates between different forces. So it takes time to establish a successful economic experiment or economic platform that is growing fast and giving employment and social benefits to people. So because of that, the UAE and other forces are trying to discourage people to follow the path of democracy. They're pumping money into the forces that are against democracy, but they're also using their media. They have dozens of media, and Arabic-speaking media or English-speaking media, and they're reaching out to people to kind of tell them the message, the narrative that the Arab Spring has failed, that you got nothing, everything is even worse than before. And in some aspects, there might be some truth in this because the economy has failed to pick up, has failed to improve post 2011. But let us not forget, in the case of Tunisia, there were a lot of terrorist attacks that are very suspicious from Daesh and from other places that have destroyed the economic platform that is represented by tourism, and a lot of the dividends that were coming from this very lucrative economic activity has disappeared, has dwindled for quite some time, and this has even affected other sectors as well. So there is a domino kind of effect, and sometimes I think the politicians from different sectors or different political spectrum needs to be mindful that the economic situation, the social situation is extremely important in order for people to remain committed to democracy and remain in the path of democracy. I mean, let us just not forget, I mean, the United States back in January was on the verge of another coup via mob. Yeah, so this is why I would really advise the viewers to be vigilant when it comes to these images of mobs and counter mobs, because there is no absolutely, I mean, no credence to these movements, because there is a lot of manipulation, there is a lot of disinformation, and this is why democracy has to be a play field that is even for all players. Because if we don't want something to happen in our societies, if we don't like some kind of practices in our societies, the polls should be the answer to whatever we want, and we have to have the power of mobilization, and we have to work politically in order to achieve those aims and objectives. But if everybody disliking something relies on force, on violence, or on mobs, that's not acceptable. And I think that we should be really vigilant across the board, and not just in Tunisia, everywhere, because democracy remains the best platform, political platform for for societies to excel and move ahead. Dictatorship, we know what dictatorship is, and we know the negative effects and nefarious effects of dictatorship. With every dictatorship is suffering, and I can bring you hundreds of examples, but I'm sure the viewers will be bored by that. But it's definitely the case that dictatorship is a problem for the citizen. It creates a lot of frictions, a lot of problems for the average citizen, and the repression is way above any kind of acceptable level. So I think people need to be careful with that.